sports are really important vehicles for relationships.
We have purpose. We have a why. We bring people together. We connect.
I feel like God is our greatest supporter and our greatest coach.
Welcome to Rabbi on the Sidelines. This is Rabbi Sherman from Sinai Temple in Los Angeles. Today we are joined by a fascinating Israeli-American basketball player who not simply checks a lot of boxes, but who is an inspiration to so many. Jared Armstrong, Israeli-American basketball, founder of Jab Basketball. Jab stands for Jared Armstrong Basketball, but as Jared told me, it really is about where we are in the world right now. So we are very excited to welcome Jared all the way from the land of Israel. Jared, it's so great to have you. How you doing?
Hey, Rabbi. Thanks for having me. I'm doing all right.
Of course. So you actually wrote to me August, I looked at my emails, 2023. We were in a very different place before October 7th. Talk to me a little about your story pre-October 7th in August 2023 when you were out there telling your story. And by that, I mean, I think you can really give your narrative in three worlds: the world of basketball, the world of faith, and the world of Israel. So talk to me a little about growing up Jewish in America as an African American.
For me, it's kind of just started from birth. I didn't really be outspoken about my Judaism until I got older. My Judaism comes from my mother's side, and I grew up pretty, I wouldn't say strict, but pretty religious. Friday nights, wasn't able to do anything, and kept Shabbos, and Saturday would be in the synagogue all day. But even on Saturdays, I wasn't even allowed to play basketball, growing up until around the age of 12. But,
Wow.
Most people never really question my identity as far as being Jewish, because I never really spoke out about it. Most people just never thought, there were Black Jews maybe at the time, but I never really was vocal about it until I got older. And, I'm not religious now, but until, I wanted to play in Israel and had the opportunity to come here and got the opportunity to play for a really big club in the Winners League. And that's when really a lot of people, even people that I were close to, started finding out about, my family lineage, my family's history, my mother's side of being Jewish. And even growing up, I didn't go to Jewish day schools or anything. My parents were big on just having a diverse background. So I even got a chance to learn. I went to Mennonite high school,
Oh, wow.
to a Catholic school, middle school. I went to a predominantly prestigious private school for elementary school. So just growing up, I went to all different types of schools where I got to meet all different type of kids from different backgrounds. That really gave me a diverse understanding of other religions. And just really much my Judaism just came from, going to synagogue every week.
And so there's many different, like we said, categories that you sort of fit into, but also categories that you don't fit into. And so let's speak on the American side in the Jewish world. Was there any racism that you faced before we even get to the topic of anti-Semitism?
I wouldn't say really racism. I would just say a lot of prejudice. Just people would just, look at the color of your skin and, assume that you weren't, Jewish just based on that. Or, obviously you do tell them you're Jewish. They just ask the question on how or where, but I would always kind of just nudge them, not in a rude or mean way, but just say, if I was a different color skin, would have you asked me this question? Because some people will come off and say, I'm not trying to be racist or anything or prejudiced, but, in the midst of it, you are, just in my opinion. But other than that, like I said, I wasn't really vocal growing up about my Judaism. I was very just stayed in a bubble, stayed in my own box, stayed in my own lane, and basketball just kind of drove me, all across the country, met all different people from all different religions and faiths, even some of my closest friends today, but they never really asked me, about my faith and my belief system.
And so then I know you connected with Rabbi Michael Beals in Delaware, who went through another conversion. Why go through that? And tell us a little about the narrative of what he really meant to you in your life as a mentor.
Rabbi Michael Beals is he's a character, number one, but he's a very inspirational guy that, not only a mentor but truly inspires me. My aunt goes to synagogue. Before I was a member, my aunt was a member of the synagogue in Delaware, and she lived across the street. And when I started to have to go through the process of, applying to make Aliyah and going through Benefesh, I felt like I needed I guess someone with more authentication, would you say? And she introduced me to him, and he accepted me with open arms. He was actually a person that didn't believe I needed to go through a conversion process just for my family lineage and them being supportive of Israel and coming to Israel, going to Knesset. Obviously, they had many government officials that visited the synagogue. And he really was just my backbone. I was plenty of nights, even when I was living in Israel. I have a story that I haven't put out yet, but I used to live in a hostel when I was in Israel, when I was fighting for citizenship, with 12 people in a room, open
Wow.
chapel. And the story is just really, believing in your faith. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a person that's religious, but, I easily could have went home and just said, hey, mom, I'm going to just get a 9 to 5, but the fight for citizenship was bigger than myself. It was more so for my family. It's more so if and when I have kids, if they want to come to Israel. I knew the narrative would stay the same if I, applied for citizenship, got denied and just said, I'm going to quit. The narrative would have been, oh, he's just an African American player that tried to convert to Judaism to play basketball here in Israel. And I knew this story and mold would be bigger and stronger if I fought. And I know along the way it inspired not only myself, but so many other people that would reach out to me, that not may going through the same situation, but also be going through a midst of adversity and tough time in their life. So I remember vividly texting him plenty of times in a hostel. You're like, listen, man, I'm ready to quit, man. And,
Uh-huh.
and he would just be always giving me inspirational words and, telling me like he's not forgotten about being, he's consistently helping me. And it's another guy, just like Rabbi Michael Beals, that helped me. That name was Joey Lowe. And he was basically like another mensch that helped me along the way.
Yeah, it's interesting when we speak from our pulpits about this topic of conversion in Israel, right? You have to tell a story. And really, your story is a story that I think must be told based on mistakes that were made to make sure that you're doing it for the right reason. And I just was watching a Zoom that you were doing with the community a couple of weeks ago, and you talked about birthright. Was birthright the initial connection to get you to Israel? What was even your knowledge about Israel growing up? You said, religious background, Shabbat, etc. What was your knowledge about Israel before you sort of entered this mess, if you wish?
So going back, it really started my grandmother. She actually was supposed to come to Israel years ago, but the Yom Kippur War happened. So nobody in my immediate family had ever been to Israel, outside of like cousins and people like that. But like my mother and my immediate family, no. So after I got the contract to play in Israel and I went through the whole conversion process, I remember I was on a Zoom call with my rabbi, and he was just like, how do you know you even want to live there? Like, how do you even know you're going to like it if you go? And he was like, how about you go on a birthright trip? It's free, 10 days, pay the, whatever the little fee was that you get back. He was like, see if you like it first. Like, you're taking this contract, but you don't even know if you're going to like the culture, the people, so on and so forth. So I ended up going. It was a life-changing experience. That was one of my first times outside of the country because growing up, I played AAU. I went to college. So, I was a person that was considered a gym rat. I really didn't believe, and I still don't really believe in vacations and off time. I always kind of just stayed consistent in the gym and working hard. And I loved it. I actually went on a trip with people from Los Angeles. I didn't want to go with anybody from the Philly area. I wanted to meet people from different, backgrounds, people from different areas around the world. And I had a great 10-day experience. And then I went straight from birthright right into training camp.
Right. And that wasn't expected, right? Somebody was on that trip and said, you're staying here?
No, that was expected.
It was?
Yeah, because if I went back home, they would have to pay for my plane flight coming back to LA. So it was like, you might as well just stay from birthright and come right to training camp. So it was.
Well, was there a moment on that trip that, you talked about not being, it's funny, you use the word religious, people use the word spiritual. Obviously, there's some type of connection between what's happening in Israel and what's happening in your own life. Was there a moment, was it the Kotel experience with the Masada Dead Sea experience? Was there something that you said, you know what, I think I like it here, and not just like the physical land, but really are making a spiritual connection too?
I think for me personally, it just felt like home. The Kotel really was a touching experience for me. I actually wrote something, I haven't spoke out vocally about it, but one of my wishes at the time was making Israeli citizenship, and I put it in the Kotel. When we went there, They was like, mostly put a wish in there, hopefully it comes true. and I put 3 wishes in there, and that was my first one. And I remember actually when I was fighting for citizenship, I went back and put another one in. But as far as spiritually, I didn't feel anything. Just it felt like home culturally, and being around my own people and being around others. It definitely felt like home to me, and a place that I saw, I can definitely live here.
And so you live there, you play there. Maybe a quick highlight about what it's like to play in Israel, the fans, the experience, playing against international competition. What's that like before we get to more of the serious aspect?
For me, I'm still building my career. So I've been lucky to play for 3 different clubs. I had a short stint in the Pol Haifa. We had a crazy story where we played in Russia. That was a experience. Then I ended up playing for Maccabi Rishon LeZion, which was one of the biggest clubs here in Israel. And this year I took the opportunity to play for Usla Ashkelon, which is in the south. But listen, Israel is one of the best countries to play basketball in. It's actually, probably top 8, top 9 countries. And, the competition is great. A lot of former NBA players. This is a hub that they play at and stop at. And, it's really a networking place as well off the court. So, my time so far has been great. I'm still building my career. I'm still young. And, I'm looking to just grow and continue to get better.
I got to push you on that Russia question. You said it was interesting to play in Russia with, I believe you said it was Haifa. Would something happen, or was it just, what is it like representing Israel in a country like that?
Number one, we was in a city that I couldn't even pronounce the name, but it was dark at like 4 o'clock. We definitely couldn't even really go outside. Everything was, charter bus, get on the bus, get back in the hotel. I wouldn't say it was a safety or security reason, but you're in Russia, so you never know what to expect. It was just really you could see a whole culture difference from Israel to Russia. Of course, seeing the weather, we went in the winter, but even the style of basketball is way more physical. The refs, the way they were calling the game. So, I mean, for me, it was a life-changing experience. But you can just see just different cultures just from being 4 or 5 hour flight. So that was the big getaway for me.
And so I believe you're in Ashkelon now. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So I was just watching other clips that you've had, specifically on the news in Israel and different Zooms that you've done around the world. And we speak about October 7th. And that day obviously changed all of our lives. I'm thousands of miles away, but our community is so connected to the land of Israel. We do missions. We'll be there in May. You were simply there to play basketball. So maybe just take us through that moment of, I know you got a call from a coach and you're like, why is my coach calling at 7 a.m? It's just a siren. Israelis, quote unquote, live with sirens. It'll be over. When did you realize it was something bigger than just another siren?
Originally I got a call, and really this call the shocking wasn't the fact that he was calling and the time I was calling. It was the fact that it was our day off and it was Shabbat. So I'm like, why is my coach calling on Saturday? We had just had a game Friday afternoon, which we won. So I'm like, shouldn't you be getting a call? Like, I'll see you on Sunday. And literally, like you said, it was just him, giving me precautions that it would be sirens and missiles that be coming to Ashkelon. And, before I signed here, I was aware of how close we were to Gaza, and that Ashkelon is one of the most targeted cities, when they do fire rockets and missiles. So I get in the call, and I'm just on the phone. I'm like, yeah, I'll be all right, because my room is at Mamad. And then around, I would say 7:30, 8 o'clock, I started checking my phone. And I got a phone call first, was from a friend of mine who plays in Ramat HaSharon at the time. And his girlfriend was Israeli. So he called me like, yo, you hearing what's going on? I'm just checking on you, making sure you're good. Israel's under surprise attack. So while we're on the phone, I was a little bit in shell shock. So I start checking Instagram, and I start seeing, that Hamas has started, trying to take over cities, and started taking over cities and started killing innocent civilians. And obviously at the Nova Festival. Mm-hmm. So around 8:30, I would say an hour later, I heard a big boom, and my room and apartment start shaking because I live on the beach. And I look outside my window on my balcony, and a rocket was like 50 feet away from my apartment. Like, you can see the smoke and everything. And that's in my head. I kind of just went into survival mode. I was like, oh, this just got real. So I kind of just started, I wouldn't say panicking, but I was, this was an experience I'd never been a part of, just being so close to a rocket or a missile in general. So I rushed downstairs. All of our Americans live in the same building. And I'm knocking on my teammate's door, and he was asleep. So that was the whole irony of the situation. But I wake him up, and we're in the living room. And basically, we're going back and forth because you can still hear the rockets, the room shaking, you can hear the alarms. And we got to the point, we're like, man, we're going to die. We're going to die. Because the rockets were every 3 minutes or every 4 minutes. So it was like you run in the room, you run back out, and it was just continuous. So we made a decision. I'm like, listen, we're not safe if we stay here. You know, they were at this time, this was probably 11 o'clock, they had attacks to the road, which was like 15 minutes, 10 minutes away from where I live. And I said, listen, the safest thing we can do is try to go to the north. If they kill us on the road, like at least it was our fate. You know, we tried to get away, we died, so on and so forth. So he packed the bag, I packed the bag, took my car, got on the road, and it was like 5, 6 stops before we can get to Tel Aviv. We ended up rushing to my friend's house. We had to stop to get food, and after we grabbed the food, a cop stopped us. I guess they were making sure it wasn't terrorists in Tel Aviv, doing a lot of precautions. And he just was asking us, you know, where are you going? Why are you on the road? Do you know what's happening? And we told him we were going to Ramah HaSharon. Long story short, he just told us, like, listen, man, stay in your house for 5, 6 days. Do not come outside. It's not safe. So on and so forth. And we pretty much just stayed there. And once I got in the house, it kind of just motivated me to, and that's where I was doing all my news interviews in Israel. It kind of just motivated me to tell the news stations in America, you know, about the atrocities of what's going on in Israel from at least my perspective, you know, and me living here and actually being a person in the South.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important, like you said, from your perspective, right? It's not different coming from an Israeli perspective, but somebody who grows up in the Philadelphia area, goes through your story, not simply there to play basketball, but has this connection. You can tell that story better to us in this country than somebody who might be, you know, biased from looking on the outside as well. I mean, to hear, I just had chills listening to you saying, you know, we might die, but it's our fate. I mean, millions of people live under that fate every single day as well. And so how does basketball continue under these conditions? Was there a pause? What did that look like? And what does a team talk like that when international competition is trying to play together?
So, yeah, since it was a surprise attack, nobody really knew what was going on the first couple of days. And then I would say after day 3, they had the Winners League and our league started flying. Majority of the Winners League started flying players to Greece just for a quick pick stop. I know at least like Maccabi Tel Aviv and other teams immediately got their players out of Israel. And then our team, pretty much we were just trying to figure it out on our own. You know, most of our team was Israeli. We had about 4 Americans, and me and my teammate luckily were together. So we were like, listen, we got to get out of here, you know, but we have to figure out, you know, best case scenario, because flights were getting super expensive, and they were hard to get. Like some flights were like $3,000, $4,000. And basically we had forgot our passports. So we had to figure out, we're sitting in an apartment trying to contemplate how to get back to Ashkelon because terrorists were still on the road. So we decided, you know, same thing, kind of just really God's blessing, to be honest. We rushed back on the road at 6 a.m, rushed to Ashkelon, get our passports, pack a bag, rush back. Luckily, I had found a travel agent that was connected with the league. And she basically says, hey, I have a last minute flight to LA. My brother lives in LA.
God.
And he has an entertainment company there. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'll get to LA. As long as I get out of Israel for right now, I'll be okay. He ended up getting a last minute flight, I believe, to Rome, to Italy. And we go our separate ways. I mean, that was pretty much it. And then from there, you know, I just went on a lot of hospital, just trying to, you know, spirit the community and tell what was going on.
Well, I wish I knew you were in LA. We would have hosted you here at Sinai Temple, and I hope the next time you'll be here as well. Not because you have to, but because you want to. I think it's really important. You mentioned Hasbara, which I think is really the next part of that story for our audience who doesn't know Hebrew. Sort of explanation or publicity or marketing, and it's not marketing like commercials, but really getting the word out of what's actually happening on the ground as well. And you do that through basketball. So we started with, you know, racism in America. We now move to anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism in Israel. And now you sort of bring that back. Actually, I want to talk one thing first, because I saw that you said you went to Kfar Aza, and so many people are bearing testimony, a witness of what happened. You didn't simply go to Ashkelon, you went to where the attacks happened. Why did you decide to go there? What did you see, and what did you learn from that experience?
So luckily, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs had invited me to come see it. You know, for me, it's a little bit unique situation because I've pretty much been one of the only athletes, at least in Israel, that has spoken out, vocally about the situation, just being African American, being Jewish. Many, many players haven't been vocal, which I've been kind of trying to push the narrative, that it doesn't have to do anything with race, color, it's just about humanity. And I think, Ministry of Foreign Affairs saw the message that I was trying to push, and
Right.
they invited me to come, and obviously I said yes. And basically it was just to use my platform as a person that's, sits between so many intersections, being an athlete, being Jewish, being Black, to, speak out about the atrocities that happen and pretty much show that it's not about, like I said, race, color, skin. It's about just being a good human, believing in what is right. And I just wanted to use my platform to do so. So when I went, it was very touching. It took me about a week to kind of grasp everything. But from there, like I said, I just been trying to do anyhow where I can, because there are so many October 7th deniers, so I also wanted to do that as well.
Yeah, actually 2 weeks ago here at Sinai Temple, we had the Rosenfeld, Zvira and Maya Rosenfeld from Kfar Aza, who were with their baby for 24 hours locked in the safe room. They survived. His brother did not. They are now working to help her brother's twins who did survive. And so there's so many stories of that as well. And so take us back to America with JAB. When did you create JAB, Jared Armstrong Basketball? What were the initial goals, and how have those goals changed since October 7th?
So I'm going to rewind a little bit. Out of college, before I had my citizenship problems, I graduated during COVID, and I needed to get a job. So my mom told me, I come from a very hardworking family, that I got to do something. Graduated college, have a degree. And basically, I started Who Would Have Thought basketball, which was a way for me to train high school and college kids. Give me 1 second. I just got to get a drink of water.
No worries. We are with Jared Armstrong, Israeli-American basketball player, the founder of JAB, which is Jared Armstrong Basketball, an Israeli-American who made Aliyah through his citizenship, telling us the story of creating JAB, the initial goals, and how those goals have changed after October 7th.
Yeah.
Jared's back.
Yeah, so I initially started Who Would Have Thought basketball, and it was basically my saying, everybody has their own Who Would Have Thought story. Everybody has a story that they can tell and use to motivate others. And that initially started to help excel and help college and high school basketball players. I ended up working with Division 1, 2, 3 players from all around the world. And I always wanted to use basketball as a way to bridge gaps between communities, and I felt that that was a way to do so. But going forward, after my citizenship process, I felt there was a big gap between communities, not only between the African American and Jewish community, but between all communities. Just from my own experience, fighting for citizenship and living in Israel, living in America, and just seeing, the mislaps. But I felt it was a void that needed to be filled, and that many people weren't using basketball to do so. They weren't using sport to build those bridges. So about, I would say 6 months ago now, I originally started with the name Aziel Foundation, which is my middle name. Aziel in Hebrew, as you probably know, means God has created. And my message was that God has created us all in our own image.
Love that.
Basically, everybody's supposed to be who they are because of God. So originally it was a very small idea. I just wanted to start it. So I had a free clinic on the 60th Commemorative Day of Washington. One day before I flew to Israel, I found 40 kids from all different communities, Muslim, Christian, Jewish communities, just through my network. And my goal was pretty much to help try to bridge the gap and bring the kids under one umbrella and use basketball as a way to do so. Luckily, I had some helpers, one being Eric Rubin, who runs Project Max, that spoke to the kids. I had a friend of mine, Bilal Bin, who used to play basketball here in Israel for 3 years. And I had a 76ers former strength and conditioning coach. And basically, the news stations came, and I didn't really think of it was a mastermind idea until afterwards. A kid spoke to the news station. He was like, the most important thing is that I got to understand each other. And a kind of thing went into my head. And I said, I think I have something with this, and it's not a way for me to, make money, but to make an impact. So, I wanted to use the name JAB because I felt, obviously, after October 7th, that our society had taken a big jab, and most people don't know, a jab step is a
Yeah.
big move and a big misdirection that you can have in a game or, playing one-on-one. And we have taken a misdirection just in society as a whole. So from there, I think October 7th, unfortunately, what happened has more so amplified the work that I've been trying to do. And that's just to combat, racism, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, Asian hate, and any hate in all forms together. And I pretty much just started that initiative. And I also wanted to give kids not just to learn the fundamentals of basketball, but I offered 3 components. So kids, like my camp this summer, that'll be happening in Philly, kids will have a component of financial literacy,
Nice.
a component of religion, nutrition, and they'll have a course on anti-Semitism, racism education. Three components that they can use in any aspect of life. You're going to have to learn how to manage your money. You're going to have to learn how to build healthy habits if you want to live for a long time. And you're going to have to learn how to deal with others in the workforce, and if you deal with anti-Semitism, racism, how do you have open dialogue? How do you understand that person, or how do you deal with it? So I just wanted to try to use basketball as a way to pivot and build the bridge, and bridge the gap.
And do you see yourself working with Israeli players to also work on that, right? Often people say, I just spoke to a community college team out in Los Angeles the other day, and I was paired with a very well-known black coach, and he spoke about racism. I spoke about anti-Semitism, and then we sort of bridged the gap. And he talked about athletes being reluctant role models, right? I'm here to play basketball, and I like to say, your story becomes my sermon. How can you get that message to athletes that they can really make a difference off the court, and maybe you have the responsibility to be part of that as well?
I think especially within my own community, as an athlete myself that's been blessed to play professionally, many people believe, you're on this pedestal, when obviously, in my belief, you're not. There's only a certain amount of people that's blessed to make an impact, for the rest of their lives, the LeBrons, the Kobe's, the Michael Jordans. But as I tell people all the time, like in 20 years, you're just going to be remembered as a good player. Unfortunately, it is what it is. And, I always wanted to try to leave an impact off the court, because that's what kids going to remember the most. If you meet a person and they're mean to you, you're going to remember them how they treated you. You're not going to remember and say, oh yeah, he's a great basketball player. No, you're going to be like, oh, he treated me like a butt. And I always wanted to be remembered as a person it was bigger than basketball. I wanted to use the game and not let the game use me. And that's kind of what I try to preach to other players, whether it's being in the space of building bridges, it could be mental health, it could be anything, that you can use basketball to kind of pivot and make an impact in youth, because they are our future, So, I kind of look at myself as trying to be a role model to impact any young person, either if they're Asian, if they're black, if they're white, regardless of their religion, to tell them, you can do whatever you want to do in life, So that's the way I try to preach it to other players, but, it's only up to their heat to take it.
While watching your journey specifically through the citizenship struggle, I was almost thinking, like, is this guy going to make it? And if he does, what are you going to think about the country that almost did not accept you? And here you are fighting for the country that finally did accept you. How do you get over that piece as a human being when you say it's all about humanity, when you realize that you were wronged, justice was served, and now you're helping others be served?
I basically just use it as motivation. Pretty much it, that part of the country that part of the government doesn't represent the whole country. And people have to realize that, there's many people in Israel that don't like the Ministry of Interior. And, I just accept it for what it is. And I just use it as motivation, as inspiration for anybody else going through a tough time. Nice.
So I want to conclude by asking you your advice to a kid who's sitting as a young Jewish American, as a young African American, as a young African American Jew in this country, who loves the game of basketball, who is worried about what's happening in Israel. How do you become the next Jared Armstrong? What's your advice to them?
My advice is just be better. Don't try to become me. Be better than me.
Oh, I like that.
And pretty much, work as hard as you can, have a big dream, and go strive for it. And my biggest advice that I can give is be vocal, be loud, be a leader, and always remember that, there's always somebody watching you. You never know who's in the stands.
Jared Armstrong, words of wisdom from the land of Israel and Ashkelon, truly a hero to the American people, to the Jewish people, to the African American community, to Israel. Jab basketball, Israeli American. We hope to see you in Los Angeles. We'll be in Israel in May. Look forward to bringing people together through this very special game of basketball. Thank you for joining us, Jared and Rabbi on the sidelines, and we'll see you soon. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. You too.